Victoria, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you on the show. It's been way too long. I was on your incredible podcast, El ADN. You were an incredible speaker at Our Money, Our Power in Puerto Rico. So it is just a full circle moment to have you here. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you for opening the space to me. And it's also a full circle moment to me. I've listened to Yo Quiero Dinero since I first began my own financial journey. So
Wow.
to be here today is just like, girl, you made it. I did something right.
You've made it in so many ways. You have an incredible story, and I can't wait to dive into it with you. But first, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for folks who are meeting you for the first time.
Yeah, so my name is Leandra. I am a Puerto Rican award-winning journalist, born and raised in the island, but I moved to the US when I was 17. To embark on my journey of becoming a reporter, I quickly learned that I wanted to be much more than a TV reporter, and I became sort of like a multi-hyphenate. I am a producer, a host, on-camera personality, I'm an influencer, I am a journalist, and then most recently, I'm an entrepreneur.
Amazing. And we're going to dive into all of that because one thing that strikes me about you being a fellow Boricua, you followed a career path that like literally, I feel like no Puerto Rican parents would be like, oh yeah, that's a great fucking idea. Go into journalism, right? We get the doctor, lawyer, engineer. Those are the three options. First of all, what made you want to pursue your career as a journalist?
Yeah, so ever since I was little, I was very into media. Like, I loved the camera. I was super comfortable in front of the camera. And I was sort of like, I would literally wait for my dad to come home and I would have a whole show prepared for him, a dance show, a singing show. And he would have to like, I am not kidding. I have videos of this. He would have to sit down in my bed to watch the full show. And if he laughed or if he interrupted me, I would begin again. Because it was like a whole show, right? So I feel like I was born for it. I'm very comfortable in the space, and I think that I thrive off of that pressure to have a lot of eyes on you. And when I didn't know what to pick as a career, I was between a dermatologist and a journalist. I never wanted to be a dermatologist. Like, I don't even like science, but you had to sort of pick a path that made sense. And as soon as I learned that I needed to deal with blood, I was like, no, this is over for me. I would never become a doctor. Just stick with what you know, stick with what you know best. And what comes natural to you. At the end of the day, it comes natural to me. It doesn't feel forced. And I love it. And I feel like that's how you find success, right? Doing what you love.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's funny because my father had me and my sister doing these home videos where I think he was trying to make us like the Olsen twins, even though we're 3 years apart. My parents would dress us the same. We would do all these like theatrical skits. I'm going to need to share that with y'all one day because it's hysterical. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, my dad was literally like preparing me to do what I do now, even though I did not make that connection, which is crazy. Okay, so you decide to go to college for journalism. Where did you study, and what was the original career path that you were imagining for yourself?
I think that was truly a pivotal moment for me in my financial career because my parents took my brother and I on a family trip to New York. It was a road trip in the US. We did New York and then we did Canada. And when I first landed in New York, I was like, what is this world? Like, something connected me to the city. As I was walking in Manhattan, I saw a group of students that looked like aspiring college students. And I was always very nosy, hence the journalism, right? Like, I was always asking questions. So I asked my parents, let's go see what's there, what's happening. And I asked, and it was a college tour so that you could get to know a little bit of NYU. And I asked my parents, can we please stay? So that's the first time that I said, oh, like, there is a possibility for me to study somewhere else that's not University of PR, which is where a lot of people in Puerto Rico go to, or at least aspire to go to. So they were like, okay, cool, amazing. When I came back to Puerto Rico, I said, I want to study in New York. And they said, we don't have the money for that. So you'll have to figure out a way to get yourself there. We can pay for you PR, but we cannot help you paying New York college tuition. And my dad said, you're not going to go in debt. I'm not going to allow you to take on college loans. So the only thing that I could do is find a scholarship. So I applied to all the scholarships that I could. I am not a sports girl, so I could not get a full tuition scholarship by playing basketball or anything. So I was thankfully awarded a academic full tuition scholarship, right? So it's based on your merit, based on your GPA, etc. So I was actually awarded a community service scholarship, a journalism scholarship, GPA scholarship, and then a scholarship because I was part of the Lasallian educational community because I studied in Colegio de La Salle in Puerto Rico, which is part of the bigger like educational network, basically.
So was that enough to cover your entire like 4 years of tuition, all those scholarships?
It was covered mostly. So my parents still had to pay for room and board, basically. They could handle room and board, but I would work to handle everything else that I wanted. So if I wanted to go out into the city, if I wanted to go to a restaurant or do activities with my friends, I would have to pay for that. So they would only do the room and board, and everything else that I wanted that was sort of extra to do in the city, I had to pay for.
You know, it's funny. I never applied to any like major New York schools, even though I grew up in New Jersey, because I felt like I was going to be so distracted by all the things going on in the whole New York City atmosphere that I was like going to flunk out of school. I was never going to go to class. And so I went to like a little school in northern New Jersey. You literally needed a car to go anywhere. There wasn't shit around there. How did you stay focused during your college career? Because New York City is probably one of the most stimulating places in the world.
I think for someone like me, I was always very driven. And ever since I was little, I sort of had that innate belief that I was born for something greater than myself. Literally, I have it tattooed on my body, born to be great. When I landed in New York, I was solely focused on making it. There was a point in my college career that I sadly, or unfortunately to say, I didn't even have many friends. I was just interning. I was going to networking events. I was introducing myself via emails to people that I admired and I wanted to learn from. So I was very, very determined. I think for someone like that, New York is a playground. That's how I felt in New York. I felt like the world was full of possibilities, and I felt like it would be dumb of me to not take advantage of the sacrifice that I was putting myself in and my parents were putting themselves in. Not only financially, but me, like I was 17 when I left my home. And I said, girl, you have to make it, because if not, you did all of this for nothing. So for me, there was never, like, failure was not an option, as corny as it sounds. So I stayed focused because I knew if I did, I would come out of it the professional that I wanted to be. I think people say, New York breaks or makes people. It made me, because I was able to sort of handle the hustle and thrive in that hustle.
I love that. And I feel like you're speaking on something that is a really valuable like character trait to have, which is the ability to like sacrifice the immediate for the long term. And there's so much discipline that's required when we're talking about money, of reaching those money goals, those career goals, those business goals. You could get really distracted with all the flashy shit, the instant gratification, and not really have a greater purpose that keeps you motivated and keeps you doing the hard stuff when everybody else around you is having fun. So I want y'all to pick up on that too, because when you think about the people who you find successful, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have that character trait of discipline, which is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And I still have fun, don't get me wrong. I had friends that I really resonated with, but I've never been someone to follow the crowd. I've never been someone that put fun first. I think now in this point in age of my life, it's that let me find hobbies. Let me do something for fun. Let me do something that I am not monetizing. Let me just be. Now I get to sort of live and experience, because before I was so focused that I had that tunnel vision.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's okay to have that season of life, that hustle season where you are building your career, your business, your legacy, because what we're working towards is that freedom, is those options. But if you don't focus on getting that foundation in place, putting yourself out there, creating those opportunities for yourself, you're never going to actually get to a place where you can decide, I'm going to stop doing so much. I'm going to start being.
Amen.
Okay, so you graduate from NYU with a degree in journalism. Where does that take you?
So I graduated from Manhattan College.
Okay.
I never even applied to NYU. When I saw the opportunities or like the possibilities for scholarship, I was like, you're not even going to apply there. Like, you're going to go to Manhattan College, the smallest place. anything that would get me in the city, because after the city, I would just run with it.
Okay. So tell me about how your career trajectory has gone from when you graduate to where you are now, where you're a multi-hyphenate entrepreneur, thought leader. Walk us through that journey.
I've gotten this comment a few times, and it's that it seems like you're everywhere. It seems that you're an overnight success, but it's like, what? Like, what? I literally interned and I just worked my off basically until now. I'm like, oh, finally sort of getting the recognition in the industry that I've put all these seeds to finally getting, right? The first time that I got a big opportunity in the media industry was when I got an internship. I got 2 internships in one summer. I was very strategic about this. I would work 3 days at one place and 2 days at another place. So I had sort of like a media full-time job. And it was with New York One News, the local TV station, because I still wanted to do the TV reporting thing, and then with Vice Media. And when I got to Vice Media, I was like, wow, it was really a bunch of young, creative people that were bringing the craziest ideas to the table, and somehow the executives were making it happen. So I completely ditched the TV production dream because my dream changed pretty quickly. So I continued being an intern on Vice for 3 semesters. When my second semester of senior year came, I got an offer for a full-time role at Bloomberg. Bloomberg was developing a brand for younger audiences called TikTok at the time. Right now it's called Quick Take because, of course, the platform. But they tapped into me to be part of this founding team, basically, that would tell the news on Twitter. They later on began doing more platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, but I was part of that founding team. And to close the loop off, basically what happened is that my previous boss at Vice, she reached out to me and she said, hey, Victoria, we finally have an open full-time position. We would love to bring you back into the team. That's how I got my first full-time role in media, because the Bloomberg gig was a contractor role, even though it was full-time. So I stayed at Vice for about 2.5 years, and I loved it. That's sort of the company that really taught me how to do a lot of the things that I do right now. That's the company that taught me how to report on news. That's the company that really allowed me to blossom as a news media outlet on social. I learned a lot about audience engagement and audience development in that company. And I did a lot of networking. I've always been a people person. And at the end of the day, I think that's what makes or breaks your career, the people that you know. And it's not so much as a transactional relationship. No, like these are people that you would invite to your birthday. These are people that you congratulate when they have a baby. These are actually people that you care about. And then you just happen to benefit from that relationship on a professional level. But I think one thing that I want to say is that all of the jobs that I've had up until this point, I've never applied to any of those jobs. Imagine how hard I go on relationships. I let my work speak for itself, and I also care deeply and nourish those relationships, so much so that when my bosses go to another publication or they go to another company, or they hear that someone else is looking for a candidate, they're like, oh, I have the right person, Victoria. And then people reach out to me, the interview, and then people hire me. So at the end of the day, relationships can literally make you money if you are actually putting in the work, actually caring about the other person, and actually just building that network. It's that saying, your network is your net worth. That's true everywhere you go.
Yeah, I think that's such an understated thing, that like how powerful networking can be, just connections, resources, like so many things can come from those relationships. I think as Latinos, and maybe even more specifically as Latinas, we're sort of programmed to like not ask for help. As the oldest daughter, I'm very like hyper independent, and this whole journey into entrepreneurship has made me realize I'm more powerful when I surround myself with people who just aren't exactly like me, who have different perspectives, who have different just ways of working, because that can influence you and kind of give you perspectives that you never would have imagined. So for folks who maybe say like, oh God, networking, that's so cringe. I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to approach this. Like, what's your best advice for cultivating fruitful networking opportunities?
For me, it's as simple as following someone on Instagram. Literally, if I find an editor that I want to work with, if I cold email them, they don't know me, they don't know who I am, they don't know, what I've done or what possibilities there are to work with me. So what I do is that I've always used Instagram in particular and TikTok now, but Instagram more so than all the other things. Instagram even more so than LinkedIn, which goes a lot against sort of the grain of what people say when they talk about networking. I follow someone that I would be interested in working with, and usually they follow me back, or usually I interact with their content and they end up following me back in a few months. And that's how I get to know people. That's how they get to know me, because on Instagram I am not so much sharing my personal life. I am not so much sharing my relationship, my friendships, my family. I am very selective with what I post because my personal life is very, very sacred to me. But I use Instagram to, in a way, promote me and my services and who I am and what I can do without being salesy. I am just sharing my life and I am just sharing my reality at the moment. So if I am featured in a news article, I post that. If I take a trip that I think it's worth highlighting or writing a story about, I make a video of that. Just recently, I was selected to be a part of a exhibition at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. And none of the other journalists that were featured made a social post as big as I did. I went there with my camera crew. I went there with my whole family. I went there with my best friend, my partner, and I had a whole camera crew do a whole video of me because this was so major to me. I'm talking like a girl from Bayamon making it in the US History Museum in Washington D.C. My mind couldn't comprehend. So I could just have made a post on it on Instagram, cool, or I could literally make a splash on Instagram. And I did. And I have a lot of people that follow me, a lot of people who may be those connections that I'm trying to tap into. And a lot of people reach out and a lot of opportunities came after that post. And again, it's because I've always said I use my Instagram as my resume. And that is something that I've taught people in the journalism workshops that I run. It's that a lot of times these traditional media companies, they tell you follow this straight path of like go to college, apply for a job. I'm not saying that doesn't work, but it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me because I was no one when I arrived to New York. I knew no one. No one knew me. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any connections. So I had to literally insert myself in the spaces that I wanted to be a part of by going networking, by promoting myself on the different social platforms, by sending those emails. And at the end of the day, social, what it can do for you is that it democratizes opportunities for people. And this is not only on journalism. This applies to all careers. It applies to a podcast. It applies to an engineer. It applies to a business owner who's trying to sell their products. The best marketing tool is social media.
I am so with you on that. Like, I can't tell you how many different opportunities have come up because of social. My first media feature was because of a Twitter post. I actually just got an email today about an Instagram thread where I was ranting that the American dream is dead. Now I have somebody from CNET wanting to interview me about this. It's like, if you have shit to say it. Like, this is how opportunities come up, especially if you're in the where you want to become a thought leader, you want to become an expert, you want to become top tier in your niche, in your industry. You have to be okay with that self promotion. And I think that's another thing that we're not comfortable with, especially as women. We're kind of told, calladita se ve más bonita. So how do you get to a place where you have the confidence to be your biggest cheerleader? Because that's scary for a lot of people and they can have a lot of feelings about it.
So I think for me, I have this mantra that I remind myself when I'm trying to do something big or when I'm trying to do something that is uncomfortable to me. And it's feel the fear and do it anyways. It's a simple mantra. It's simple. It's when I was about to buy my first investment property recently, I was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, you don't have debt. You're going to go into debt and you're traveling and now you're going to have like this mortgage payment, and your head thinks of all the worst scenarios that could happen. For you, it could be, oh my God, my high school crush is going to see me. Oh my God, my previous boss who hated me is going to see this and people are going to send it to each other and they're going to joke about me. Who cares? You just need to tell yourself, feel the fear, whatever those fears are. They're all valid. Just feel them. It's okay. But do it anyways, because at the end of the day, you don't regret you will regret not taking the step. If you don't take it, then you never know what could have happened. That's what I tell myself. At the end of the day, if I make si hago el ridículo, if I make a fool out of myself, cool, I tried it. It's the same thing when I'm like, for example, I'm a content creator, right? And I think a lot of times people are iffy about recording themselves in public. I always say, they don't know me. No one cares about you as much as you really think people care about you. No one cares about you. People care about their life. And when you literally you see someone doing something random, you think of it for like the next minute or so, and that's it. You forget about it. It's not that deep.
I love that message. Like, no one cares, y'all. You're really not that important at the end of the day to all these people who don't know who the hell you are. So go do the damn thing.
And then you'll find those people, those same people DMing you like, "Oh my god, how did you grow your audience? Wow, teach me how have you landed here? How did you do this?" Because I dared to try and I dared to apply and I dared to like message someone and say, "Hey, I think that's really cool. I can do X, Y, and Z. Do you want to collaborate? Do you want to create together? Does this idea sound like a good fit for you?" It's literally that simple. But if you never send that email, if you never send that message, you'll stay stuck where you are. As simple as that.
I love it. So many gems being dropped, y'all. And we haven't even gotten into the next topic that I want to dive into, which is how you make the transition from corporate to becoming your own jefa. Tell me, first of all, what was that moment for you that you're just like, you know what? I think I'm going to take a chance on myself.
There were a lot of moments, Janice. So many moments. But I think I always take it back to one because I felt so defeated. A lot of times people find it icky or when people record themselves crying. But anytime that I felt defeated and just like, damn, like I'm trying and I'm doing everything and I don't get that opportunity, I record myself because I know in the future I'm going to see it and it's like, you were worrying about nothing. I remember I always wanted to be on camera. So when I was advised, I had a big opportunity. They were running a presidential debate, not this past election, the previous one. They reached out to me. She was the SVP of news, Advice News at the time. And she reached out to me. She said, "Victoria, we want you to be on camera. Finally, my big break, or so I thought. And you're going to run this Twitter show. We're going to have producers. You're going to have a camera crew and you're the star of the show." And I was just like, oh my God, like this is my big moment. A week later, after a lot of the production was done, they just told me, "Hey, like we don't have budget for this anymore. We're not going to move forward with it." All of these things happened like right after the other. That happened. So that struck me. Second thing that happened, there was a big opportunity for me to apply to an international reporting trip for aspiring journalists or aspiring reporters. And my boss had to sign it off. I had done the application. They just needed to sign it. That's it. They just needed to approve so that I could go and take, I think it was a week off, but in reality, it was not off because the reporting I would do in Mexico, it would be for the publication. It was a no-brainer opportunity for them. Someone else will pay for the report that they would post on the channels. And she said, no, she said, "You're not ready."
Wow.
It's funny because the opportunity was for people who were not ready. It's an aspiring reporting fellowship. Like, I have not made it yet. This is to train me. And I was just like, wow, these people really are determining what my career looks like because either budget or simply people that don't want to approve things for me. And I had so many of those instances that I said, okay, I need to do something about it because I am letting someone else determine the course of my career. And in a way, I've always been very impatient. I'm just like, I want something and I want it now because I know I can do it now. So I started freelancing. I started pitching editors outside of the company to produce, to host. I started doing a lot of social media and I quickly started earning money outside of my job. And I remember something that I actually heard in your podcast here at Yo Quiero Dinero. I heard, use your job as your angel investor. That blew my mind. And I said, okay, I'm not going to put that much energy into this job that is not returning the energy that I'm putting into them. I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. I'm going to exceed expectations because that's just who I am. But I'm still going to give that same passion and that same drive to my side projects, to me as an individual and to me as a professional. And slowly but surely, all of those little gigs that I was doing, all of those freelance opportunity that I was having on the side, I literally have a Google sheet from like the past 4 years. And every single gig that was paid, I wrote it down from the first like slide on that Google sheet to the one in 2023 and even the one in 2024. Every year I've increased revenue. Every year I have grown the business. And it was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, that I said, okay, you clearly have a business because you're earning quite a bit on the side. So you need to incorporate it. You need to have an LLC. You need to formalize this. You need to have contracts. You just need to handle yourself as a business owner. And that's how I created Leandra Media Group. I never intended to grow multiple streams of income. I never said, oh, I need money. I'm gonna go after this because I'm gonna earn X, Y, and Z. No, I just needed a creative outlet for me to put out into the world everything that I knew I could. And at the time, my corporate job was not allowing me to do.
It's amazing because we're in completely different fields. Like you're in the world of journalism, I was in the world of engineering, but we both had this like, I know I'm meant for more. And it's wild, like what happens when you just have that innate belief in yourself. You just don't fucking settle. Like, I think so many people are doing such a disservice to their lives by just accepting things. Whether that's a boss who doesn't want to see you move ahead, whether that's a paycheck that you know damn well is not enough for the work that you do. It's so inspiring to just see mujeres like you who are unapologetic about owning what they deserve and like creating that when someone else doesn't want to give it to you. Where do you think that comes from you? I think that's something you're born with, of just this inner confidence, if you will. What would you say?
It's interesting because that's the base of El ADN podcast. The base of El ADN podcast is that everyone has a purpose. But I do think these people that get to the top of the mountain of their industries, they're go-getters, they're unapologetic, they're fearless. They're just like, oh, you said no to me? Well, it's your loss. I'm going to go and ask someone else because I'm not going to stick with your no. It's your no. It doesn't mean the whole industry is going to give me a no. And the whole basis of the podcast is the fact that I'm interviewing women like yourself who are at the top of their careers, and they were born in their DNA with something that is greater than themselves. I am not of the belief that some people have it and some people don't. No, some people have it a little bit more developed, and it's why you sort of tap into those people to learn from and to educate yourself from. But at the end of the day, it can also be developed, right? So for example, when it comes to finances, I was making all of this money on the side, but I only knew how to save. I didn't know how to put my money to work for me. So that's when I started reading and educating myself and researching. And even though I was not a financial girly, I became a financial girly because I had to. It would be dumb of me not to. And at the end of the day, it would be dumb for all of us, Latinas, whether you're earning $100 or $10,000, $50,000 a month. It would be dumb for all of us to not put that money to work. So at the end of the day, I do think some people are born with it, that sort of grit, that sort of, I'm going to make it happen for myself, because you have the vision of like what you're meant to be. And then some people can develop it by just simply exposing themselves, because sometimes we're not exposed to what we can be and who we can become.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think all of us have that inner hustler that sometimes we just need to cultivate by putting yourself in the right environments. You got to stop watching toxic fucking reality TV and maybe start listening to a podcast. Like, go do something to actually pour into yourself and surround yourself with new ideas and new perspectives. And I think that'll go a long way. A couple of things that stood out to me from when you're walking us through the journey from corporate to entrepreneur. First, it sounds like 2 years in, you accepted what you had built. And what I find for a lot of people, especially people who are doing the side hustle thing, they will treat their side hustle like a side hustle. They won't take it seriously. And then they're frustrated about why it's not growing. And I think at some point, you really have to start taking it from side hustle mentality to like, oh shit, I'm a whole ass CEO and I need to start moving in that way. I need to start making the proper investments, structuring things, getting the support that I need. How much of that intentionality do you think has been key to your success as well? Because a lot of people that listen to the show want to take that side hustle to full time, either imposter syndrome, there's just blocks around making that happen.
Two things. When you're working in a controlled environment in that corporate world, someone else is determining the future for you. Someone else is calling the shots. Even if you are the boss, even if you are the person who's running the team, which I have also been, at the end of the day, you have the CEO to report to, investors to report to. Like, unless you're the owner of the company, you are not calling the shots. When you are a CEO, although it's not all no es todo color rosa, because it also comes with its downfalls, and that's a whole nother conversation. You are determining your value, meaning you're setting up your rates. You say, okay, you want a consulting hour with me, it costs this much. You want to learn the skill from me, it costs this much. You want to grow the audience as I've done, it costs this much. That is power. For me, that's very powerful, especially as a Latina woman, a young Latina woman. That's one, determining your rates. Number two, you're negotiating. You learn how to advocate for yourself. You say, okay, I can do X, Y, and Z for X, Y, and Z. Oh, you're not interested in that? Okay, well, I cannot do this job. A lot of times for me, it was the value of determining my worth, determining my rates, but also the freedom that comes with it. I love traveling, and to me, traveling is so important. I love being with my family. That takes time. That takes the flexibility to maybe work remote and not work from an office. So the fact that I tasted a little bit of this remote world, that's when I said, ooh, being a business owner, I don't have to sit down in an office because I run my own business from anywhere in the world. So it gives me the freedom to be with my family when I want to be in Norway or Peru or Italy if I want to. And then I'm determining my rates. So I don't have to feel bad when something doesn't happen for me because it simply is not meant to happen. It's not because I didn't make everything in my power to make it happen. So to me, that is sort of the value of becoming a business owner. And what stood out to me as an entrepreneur and what stood out to me as someone who is building their own business. One thing that I have to say though is that you can provide opportunities for other people. For example, I quickly learned that I knew how to do some things right, and some things were not for me because I'm a creative person. It's not like I hate taxes. I dread the season. Okay, well, hire un contable, an accountant who can help you with that because that's their job. That's what they do best. Another example, which I have not done, but I am so this is when you know you're adulting and you're growing up, because I have to confess, I hate cleaning with my whole life. I just hate it. And I'm like, okay, I hate cleaning. I will gladly pay someone else to clean my apartment, my living space. I am so excited to pay someone to do that. And it's sort of like you can divide the tasks and you can determine the tasks that you're good at and the tasks that you're not good at, and then hire someone, provide a work for someone else to do it because they love doing it or they simply better than you at doing it.
I love that. And it's one of those things where I think a lot of us have imposter syndrome about hiring help. I know the first time that I like hired people to do my laundry, I was like, who the hell do I think I am? Like having people washing my fucking panties. This is crazy. But let me tell you, the amount of time that it saved, especially when I was side hustling and working a full-time job, I would not trade it for the world. If you don't have a partner who loves to clean, I'm so lucky. My partner, like his favorite pastime is just sweeping the floors and vacuuming. And I'm like, you know what? God sent me to you for a reason. Okay. I love you, boo. He's like, you know what? I feel like I'm going to go wash your car. I'm just like, this is what we need. If we don't have partners who are doing the supportive work, we need to hire the people who can help us buy back our time so that we can actually be focused on making money, building your dreams, and not in the mundane shit that has to happen. You don't need to be the one to do it all.
And it's so empowering too. It's so empowering. Like when I get an invoice and I said, at your young 27 years, you hired a podcast editor. You hired an agent. You hired a contractor to build. At one point, I was like, oh, I can install these tiles myself.
No, we're not doing that.
No. Well, I was just like, okay, this is a lot of money. And this seems easy. I saw it on TikTok. How hard can it be? No. When I knew all the different things that go into tiling and just like renovating a bathroom, I'm like, I would gladly pay you to do it for me. And it's empowering. I am hiring people. I am at a point that I can provide income to other people. That's amazing. That's sort of like the goal.
Yes, absolutely. We are done with the era of doing everything yourself, of being exhausted and depleted, because that is not where we create magic from. Okay. I want everybody listening to the show to be living in their zone of genius and outsource everything else. That's all we're doing. Okay. So I want to talk about this financial hack, if you will, that you believe has set you up for financial success. So you move out of Puerto Rico, start your career in the States, and now you moved back to PR during the pandemic. What did that do for your finances?
Yes. Okay, so we've talked about the ups, right? But in the pandemic, something that changed the course of my career happened. I was part of the first round of layoffs at my company during the pandemic. And that happened on a Friday, I remember. And it was funny because on Thursday, I believe in the power of manifestation. Like that is something that if you know me, you know, I've run programs on this and you know, I'm a very strong believer in manifesting. Well, I low-key manifested being let go of that job because on Thursday, I remember I said, oh my God, like honestly, if by September this doesn't happen, or I think it was September, if by September this doesn't happen, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna find another job. On Friday, I was let go. On Monday, I took the week off. On Monday, I was already emailing people. Hey, I'm available for work. Hey, with all my ideas. And to me, at the time, I was in New York and I was paying New York rent. And my roommate at the time, because I had a roommate, she had gone back to Puerto Rico for med school. So I was paying, I think it was like $3,200 in rent myself. I was like, okay, I need to do something about this. And I remember I just had to get rid of the apartment because it would be a financial burden for me at the time. And that was a blessing in disguise, truly, because up until that point, I was able to sort of become location free. So I spent a little bit of time in Virginia and I also spent a little bit of time in Puerto Rico. I didn't have a lease. I was paying as I was in the place. So I would contribute to my parents' house or I would contribute to the rent in Virginia. Of course, Virginia and Puerto Rico are not the same cost as New York. Well, that was at the beginning of the pandemic, but it wasn't until maybe this like almost the third year in the pandemic, then I started saying, okay, like you need to learn about finances. You need to start reading about this and you need to know how to make your money work for yourself. And that's really when all of that happened, I had in a way disposable income because in my mind, I did girl math. I was just like, okay, if I was spending 3,000 in rent, I'm using this as an example, and now I am spending $1,000. Well, what are you doing with those extra $2,000? I've never been a big spender. I've never been, well, when it comes to shopping, I am a big spender on the things that I am passionate about and on the things that I prioritize, which is travel, experiences, and restaurants. I will own that. But I've never been someone that goes shopping for every trip or that drops like thousands of dollars on big designer items. I've never been that person. So I said, okay, with those $2,000 that you're getting extra, what are you going to do with them? And I started reading and listening to podcasts and researching and figuring out what I would do with them. So that's when the whole financial setup and the whole financial plan was developed in that time where I was able to have a little bit of money to play with in a way. And I was playing with it smartly.
And were you already earning money from your side hustle at this point as well?
Yes. So at that time, I was not only earning money from my different side hustles that I was still calling a side hustle, I was still calling it like little things that I do on the side. I had also become a six-figure earner because of a full-time job that I had at the time. So I was like, well, the universe is giving you all this abundance. What are you going to do with it? You're going to either waste it and throw it away and have fun with it, which I've never been that type of person, or you're going to be smart about it and you're going to settle yourself up for financial success in the future.
I love it. It's really about intentionality. And that's one of the things that I talk about in my new book. It's just, we need to get out of autopilot and stop thinking that the scripts that you've been told about what you should do with your money, how you should pursue your career, like all of that shit needs to go out the window. You need to create your own customized plan, really think about like what that dream life looks like, and then reverse engineer it, whether that is location independence, whether that is working for yourself. You just have to ask yourself those deeper questions. Like, what do I want my life to look like? Not what does mommy and papi want or fulana. What do you want your life to look like, and act accordingly? And I think that's what I love about your story. You are out here just really giving us permission to follow the road less traveled. And I want folks to find out so much more about you, the work that you do. Tell us where we can find you on social media and what you have coming up in store.
Yeah, so you can find me at Victoria Leandra on social media. That is on TikTok and Instagram primarily. And I have two big projects coming on. Number one being Casa Leandra. That is the property that I just bought in Puerto Rico. And one will become later on an Airbnb. So if you're looking for a place to stay in Puerto Rico, in the metropolitan area, San Juan specifically, I am your girl. And then last but not least, I have a lot of courses coming up and a lot of programs, educational programs for people that want to learn a little bit more about social media, a little bit more about journalism. So if anything that I mentioned resonates with you and how you want to use your social media for your own success, for your own career, I am your go-to resource for that. So please feel free to DM me. I would love to help you and work together.
I love that. We have all the resources linked in the episode show notes. Victoria, thank you so much for giving us permission to be badass jefas. Like, honestly, there are so many people who are learning things in their careers that can be spun into a business. And this is something that I emphasize time and time again. There are really valuable skill sets that you've picked up along the way that you can monetize. You do not need to have a specific title. You can be a serial entrepreneur. You can be a multi-hyphenate. You can explore all the things you're passionate about, but it does take some strategy and it does take some intentionality. So if that's something that you want to explore, give yourself permission to do it. And thank you for giving us permission to do it, Victoria.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you to you for creating the platform, and to everyone that I'll be connecting. Thanks to you.